so for those of you who don't know, BGL is a leading distributor of insurance products and services. We are currently serving about 10 million customers and predominantly kind of categorised into two key areas. One being price comparison, so giving people access to those kind of products or services, and then secondly, insurance distribution and outsourcing. So working with a number of different partners to help share the insurance products. So some of those are your Lloyds, Halifax, Santander, Post Office, RSC, and a number of others. I guess also from a hiring perspective, we hire probably about 400 people a year within experienced or exec hiring. So pretty significantly at the moment, and that's excluding contact centres. We currently have about 3,000 employees, and we've recently just experienced and celebrated our 25th year anniversary. Okay, so a little bit about us to give you a little bit of context. Also, we are home of Compare the Market. So home of Compare the Market, Beagle Street and Layfray, probably some of the key names. So Layfray is our French comparison website too. As you can see, we have got kind of 5 key areas in terms of locations. So Sunderland and Wakefield, predominantly contact centres, Peterborough as our head office, and then also London and Layfray in Paris, just as a little bit of comparison. So what are our hiring challenges? Firstly, attraction. As you kind of experienced at the beginning, BGL is not a consumer brand. No one knows who we are. You may think, well, actually, you've got Compare the Market. So a number of people know who Compare the Market are. You've seen the Coronation Street ads. But actually, that's only quite a small population of our employees. So Compare the Market is probably about 20%. So there is still a lot of people that we need to hire outside of a well-known brand. Also some of our challenges. Head office in Peterborough. Those people outside of Peterborough don't know where Peterborough is. In the press, we haven't had a huge amount of great press recently. Peterborough hasn't. Has anyone seen the famous and Fighting Crime series that's been on TV, where you see a few celebs, minus the plebs, however you want to say it, have been working with the police force for a couple of weeks? That was filmed in Peterborough. Didn't show us in a particularly great light. And also Peterborough has been voted by Metro readers as one of the worst places to live. So all going against us a little somewhat. But all things that we're just kind of trying to embrace. I guess the other thing is we've got a bit of a saturated market. So those people who don't know where Peterborough is, but those who do, who are in about a 50-mile radius, they are either already work for us. They've either worked for us and don't want to come back, either work for us and we don't want them to come back, or they've actually been involved in our recruitment process and have been unsuccessful. So a number of little bit of challenges that we're just trying to face into. Okay. So how are we defining who we are as an employer? Okay, so making a difference for our customers, colleagues and communities is really important. I appreciate it could be a little bit generic, but something is actually at the heart of who we are. What we've actually done then to help us understand a little bit more about brand, values and behaviours of what Gary mentioned also, is we had some help. So we had an agency come in to help work with us to help us understand what is important. From those kind of workshops where a number of our colleagues got involved, regardless of where they worked, tenure, diversity, we all kind of contributed and we came up with the key values of ambitious, united, creative and authentic. Realise the slide and the print is a little small, so there's a few things I would just like to read out. So I guess those 4 key things, it's like, so what? What does that actually mean and how does that represent us? Well, actually, we kind of came to ambitious being we're obsessive about delivering for our customers. We're relentless in driving exceptional standards. We also act boldly and take personal accountability. In United, we're one BGL, regardless of the brand who we work for. We respect, encourage and care for each other. We work, grow and win together. Also creative. We think differently and disrupt markets for the benefits of consumers. We use technology to innovate. We try new things, fail fast, and apply our learnings. Authentic. We're open, transparent, and build trust. We challenge positively. We enjoy what we do and have fun doing it. So that's, for us, a little bit of the so what. So when we was having the conversations with the different colleagues, was actually trying to really probe about what it is for them. In addition to that, some of our GEC members had interviews to help get their thoughts, what does it actually mean for them relating to our brand, our culture, and then the behaviours. So how have we then kind of utilised those? Well, actually, we've built all of those things within numerous different touch points within our colleague life cycle. So absolutely the interaction, and I'll go through some of those examples with you in a moment. Also within our recruitment process. So again, we not only test for capability, cultural alignment, but also the values and the behaviours. In our onboarding, also within our performance management. So for performance management, we get rated on objectives as well as behaviours. Also in our learning and development, there's different learnings aligned to either behavioural or technical accountabilities, as well as other numerous touch points within the organisation. So actually a lot of work went in to actually get us to that point. Agencies to help us to facilitate that kind of journey, plus another agency to help us with some of the creatives. So how do we then actually build that into our recruitment campaigns? Well, actually, I spoke when I read out some of the so whats of our behaviours. Actually, there's a lot of words there. So how do we make that relevant for the hiring areas within the recruitment process? Well, actually, we had then follow-up conversations. So as an example, last year, Compare the Market, our tech teams grew significantly. So one of the first things we actually did was sat down with them and actually spoke to them about the values and behaviours and really got to the grips of what was it that was really important to them as part of their hiring process and their culture within that kind of subunit within Compare the Market. And actually they identified 4 key areas. Challenge, build, learn, grow. So those are some of the words that we kind of mentioned within the broader group. How did we get there? Again, similar process as what we actually did for the whole group, is we had a number of different workshops, we got people's views, opinions, had interviews because some people didn't want to share in a group, just to really understand what it was to them. From that, we actually built out our recruitment campaign to help attract those kind of individuals into Compare the Market. That was probably the defining, probably took about a month. From there, we actually then sat down to actually understand what it was that we needed to hire and who we needed to hire. Saying that actually just says it's quite simple really to forecast. How many of your teams or your business areas are really good at forecasting? Ish. Well, it took us longer to actually get the requirements of what it was that we wanted to hire. So whether that's the type, the location, the specifics, than it probably did to get us to the point of the 4 areas that we was looking at. But once we got that, we then kind of built out our attraction and recruitment campaign. So these are some of the imagery that we used either on adverts or some of the events that we went to help us to get there. So we kind of quickly identified our routes to market from those 62 roles that we needed to look at. So we identified location, role, what it was that we were looking at. We quickly identified where we're going to go to agency on some of the roles, or actually we're going to do it direct in-house. Then we kind of worked out what else was the routes of market. So what events were we going to target, what campaigns, what programmatic advertising we're going to do to attract each of those different those roles and the candidates for those roles. Was it successful? Yes and no, if I'm being completely honest. So we had some great feedback from candidates because we went to different events and different areas. Plus what we also did is we spent a lot of time with the hiring community on helping them bring to life their kind of brand and what it means to them. And I think some of the early learnings that I would share is that because we were actually doing that process quite quickly, and recruitment was help leading that because we had a particular goal in mind, the tech community actually felt that recruitment owned their own brand as opposed to the business owning their own brand. So something that we kind of, when I go through another example, that was something that we kind of worked on quite quickly, was to help encourage them but actually empower them to make some of those decisions. Some of the other things that actually worked quite well was messaging. So rather than recruitment going out with a lot of the messaging, we kind of encouraged our colleagues to actually do a lot of the messaging themselves. So bringing to life some of those challenge, build, learn, grow messages about their different area. Also, as I kind of mentioned, we also built in a lot of recruitment events and campaigns. So we went to a number of different events, spoke about the different areas and the hiring areas, plus also brought to life the employer brand. What does it mean to us? To help our hiring managers feel confident on those stands, we also did a number of different training. So presentation skills, also helping them to feel more confident, but also kind of went through kind of sales pieces with them so they can bring to life our benefits and actually what does it mean for them. Actually, when we spoke to our original hiring managers, they felt, whilst they bought into it, they felt uncomfortable sharing that to external parties. So we actually spent a lot of time and effort with our hiring managers so that when they actually spoke to external candidates, whether that's in events, meetups, or actually in the interview process, they could actually confidently talk about those things to candidates. Also, we kind of brought to life some of the messaging through our social posts. So whether that's sharing some of the images and activities within our meetups, some of our infographics, but also bringing to life some of the CSR activities that we do as the organisation too. So that was sort of the compared market. So that was where we'd already got a well-known consumer brand, but actually hadn't built out the employer brand. Second example that I'd like to talk about is how we've done that for BGL Tech. So actually our BGL Tech is a bigger community than our compared market tech. So we kind of went through the same kind of process. We had the focus groups and the interviews with the different areas within BGL Tech to understand how the values are important to them and what's more important within that kind of hiring area. That's how we got to the kind of four main words. So some similarities you'll be able to identify, and then we built that through some of the imagery within our events, marketing and social campaigns. Actually, we've had some quite good feedback from our candidates, actually. Whether they're successful or unsuccessful, regardless to the process, they actually really commented and gave great feedback on some of the advertising that we did and how we brought to life some of our employer brand. So I guess some of the learnings that I just wanted to kind of talk about, some that I've already kind of shared, but some was to actually build out the kind of benefits and strengths within your organisation. So what do I mean by that? Kind of mentioned the kind of four key areas within each of the different hiring areas. And we kind of really kind of worked on what that actually means with the hiring community. What's the benefit of having that? What's the benefit of working there? And really pull that out. And also make the hiring managers comfortable and confident to be able to talk about that too. I think also acceptance of issues. I kind of said up front, Peterborough isn't a great area. We've got a number of different issues, but we actually kind of faced into that. And we do that both in kind of our advertising, but also when we actually talk to candidates and some of the training that we've given to our hiring community on how to talk to candidates. And then also to work on them. So relocation. So we've actually put a better relocation package into the organisation because we know we have to attract a lot of people from outside the catchment area. So actually we've worked with a company to improve and have a bespoke relocation package to work with different candidates. So absolutely, we can have a tailor-made relocation package for an individual coming down to work and live in Peterborough, but equally we can tailor to people who are bringing their entire families, whether that's from within the UK or internationally. Also sponsorship. Actually, we've seen the number of people that we sponsor increase over the last kind of 6 to 7 months. Who knows what kind of Brexit's going to happen, and I know you've had an interesting discussion on Brexit earlier on. Also ways of working. So we've also re-looked at our flexible working policy, because again that was really something really important to our existing colleagues as well as new candidates. So we've done a lot of work on that, and dress code. So some of the kind of feedback that we'd had historically from candidates and our existing colleagues was that the dress code was too formal. So historically it was suits and ties. That has now been significantly relaxed. So again, we're continually looking at how we can understand some of the feedback and then work on that to improve the brand.